Mama Tani, I'm not prepared to have this child. Is there any way you could assist me? Mama Tani gazed at Amani with gentle yet serious eyes. My dear, it's too late to remove the child safely. It could be very risky for you. Amani's heart dropped. She was unsure of what to do. But then, Mama Tani said something unexpected. If you don't want the child, you can trade it after birth. Some people would offer a lot of cash for a strong baby. Once, in a distant town, there was a girl called Amani. Amani was gorgeous, with a gentle soul that made everyone adore her. She was always considerate and kind, bringing joy wherever she went. Amani's father was a struggling farmer, toiling daily in the fields to cultivate enough crops for his household. Her mother was a merchant, selling small goods at the marketplace, doing her best to ensure they had essentials. Despite their struggles, Amani's family was joyful. They cherished each other deeply. Amani had several close companions, and together they walked to the academy every day. She was extremely intelligent, always attentive to her instructors, and studying diligently. Because of this, she consistently topped her grade. Every week, the head instructor would smile at Amani and say, "Amani, you are the brightest in the entire academy." Then, he would reward her with a small present, like a shiny pen or a tiny book. Amani felt proud and joyful, knowing she was making her parents proud as well. The townspeople admired Amani, saying, "Amani is a wonderful girl. She will accomplish great things one day." Amani would beam, envisioning a promising destiny. As Amani matured, she reached her last year of studies. During this time, she formed a strong bond with a girl named Zola. Zola wasn't as intelligent as Amani, nor as pretty, but she had a different way of handling things, sometimes not very wisely. The other girls in the town noticed this and would warn Amani, "Amani, be cautious with Zola. She doesn't always make the best choices." But Amani ignored them. She liked Zola and wanted to stay friends. One day, Amani arrived at the academy with an empty belly. There was no meal at home, and her parents had nothing to give her. She felt extremely starving and disheartened. However, upon reaching the academy, she saw Zola holding 2 plates of food. Zola grinned and said, "Amani, I brought this for you." "I made it just for my dear friend." Amani was surprised and deeply grateful. "Thank you." "Thank you so much, Zola," she said, and they sat down to share the meal. From that moment, their bond became even deeper. Amani felt thankful to have a friend like Zola, who supported her in times of need. Even though Zola wasn't the best influence, and occasionally did things that weren't proper, Amani continued excelling in the academy. She still listened to her instructors and learned diligently. Amani thought that as long as she remained true to herself, everything would be fine after. Amani and Zola completed their studies. They started passing a lot of time together. They would wander through the town, visit the bazaar, and discuss everything. Amani noticed that Zola always wore elegant clothes, lovely jewelry, and owned things that Amani couldn't afford. This sparked Amani's curiosity. One day, she asked, "Zola, how do you afford all these wonderful things? Where does the cash come from?" Zola grinned and replied, "It's from a man named Jabari. He gives me cash and buys me presents." Amani was puzzled. "But why would he do that? What do you do for him?" Zola glanced around cautiously to ensure no one was listening, then whispered, "I stay with Jabari, and he gives me money. It's effortless, and I receive whatever I desire." Amani was stunned. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "But what if you become pregnant, Zola? Aren't you afraid?" Zola chuckled and shook her head. "Don't stress, Amani. I know how to handle that. I won't get pregnant. It's nothing to be fearful." Amani felt uncertain and concerned. She had never imagined doing something like that, but Zola made it seem so simple and effortless. Amani was unsure of how to feel, but she trusted her friend. Zola appeared so self-assured, and Amani didn't want to risk their friendship, so she stayed silent and continued following Zola's lead, even though something deep inside didn't feel right. One bright daybreak, Amani was heading to Zola's home when she encountered a man named Kofi. Kofi was youthful, charming, and well-known in the town. He was a palm wine tapper and owned a vast plantation where he crafted the most delicious palm wine anyone had ever tasted. Kofi wasn't only diligent, but also very generous. As they spoke, Kofi looked at Amani and grinned. He admired her gentle nature and elegance. Before they parted ways, Kofi reached into his pocket and took out a tiny box. Inside was a pair of beautiful jewelry. He handed them to Amani and said, "These are for you, Amani. I hope they bring you joy." A grin formed on her face. Amani was amazed and joyful. "Thank you, Kofi. They're so gorgeous," she said, her eyes gleaming with appreciation. From that day forward, Amani began seeing Kofi daily. They would chat, giggle, and sometimes stroll together to his plantation. Kofi always made Amani's sense cherished, and she started looking ahead to their moments together. As time passed, Amani and Kofi became even closer. One day, in a silent instant, they ended up being together. Amani experienced a blend of feelings. She admired Kofi deeply, yet she also felt uncertain about what had occurred. While this was occurring, Amani's family was busy arranging her destiny. They wished for her to study an ability that would aid her future. So they chose to send her to a different village called Biliku. Biliku was famous for its ability training and lively market, and they believed it would be a great location for Amani to grow. But several days after being with Kofi, Amani realized something that made her soul drop she was expecting. Anxiously, she went to Kofi and shared the news, wishing he would stand by her. Instead, Kofi shook his head. "No, Amani, I'm not accountable for that. It's not my baby." His statements were harsh, and he looked aside. Amani was devastated and isolated. The man she thought loved her had denied her in her time of need. Now, with a baby on the way, she had no idea what to do. After Kofi's rejection, Amani felt confused and afraid. Her family, unaware of her struggles, sent her to Biliku village to study a trade. They wished for her to develop an ability that would secure her future. Biliku was a vast village, famous for its ability training and busy marketplaces, attracting people from distant places to learn and trade. As Amani left her home, she felt both thrilled about learning something new and deeply afraid of what was occurring with her baby. Upon arriving in Biliku, she lived with a far-off aunt who stayed near the marketplace. The aunt was warm-hearted and accepted Amani into her home. Yet Amani couldn't stop worrying about the baby growing within her. She did not wish to have it. She had no clue how to handle a baby on her own. So she decided to meet a nurse in the village. This nurse, known as Mama Tenny, was the one everyone sought when they needed support with pregnancies. "Prepared to have this child? Is there a way you can assist me?" Amani asked. Mama Tenny gazed at her with a warm yet firm expression. "My dear, it's too late to terminate the pregnancy safely. It could be highly risky for you." Amani's heart sank. She felt lost, but then Mama Tenny said something unexpected. If you don't wish to keep the child, you can sell it once it's born. There are individuals who would offer a fortune for a strong infant. At first, Amani was stunned. Sell the child? But as she pondered it, a new emotion surfaced. She could earn from this. Maybe this was a way out of her troubles. She wouldn't have to raise the child and would still gain financial support. Amani turned to Mama Tenny and agreed. "All right, I'll go through with it," she said, experiencing a mix of relief and anticipation. Now, instead of distressing over the baby, she began envisioning profits. Amani's concerns were no longer about mastering a trade, but about delivering her child to exchange it. She didn't experience the typical joy or nervousness that expectant mothers might feel. Instead, her mind fixated on wealth. As months passed, Amani's belly expanded, and soon the birth approached. Mama Tenny, the midwife, was prepared. She had already secured a buyer eager for a newborn. When the moment arrived, Amani gave birth to a stunning baby girl. The infant wailed strongly, filled with vitality, as Mama Tenny nestled her in Amani's arms. Amani stared at her daughter, feeling hollow. She didn't experience the usual bond or affection that many mothers feel. Instead, she thought about the 500 gold coins and the dazzling ornaments awaiting her. After feeding the infant, Amani passed her over to Mama Tenny, who swiftly delivered the child to the buyer. The buyer was content and handed Amani the agreed-upon gold and jewelry. Amani examined the wealth in her grasp and felt exhilarated. She didn't dwell on the infant she had just traded. Her focus was entirely on the fortune she now possessed. With gold clinking in her purse and ornaments gleaming in her hands, Amani reached a conclusion. "This is better than acquiring a skill," she thought. "I can earn much more by selling babies." Rather than dedicating herself to learning a craft, Amani devised a new strategy, conceiving again. She realized that as long as she continued having children, she could keep selling them and amassing riches. Amani no longer viewed pregnancy the way other women did. Amani saw nothing wrong with what she was doing. To her, it was simply a method to get wealthy fast. Before long, Amani became pregnant once more. This time, it was with a man named Jabari. Jabari was just another villager, and when Amani revealed she was carrying his child, he reacted the same way Bakari had. Jabari shook his head. "That's not my child, Amani. I want no part in this." Yet Amani felt no sorrow or concern. Instead, she felt delighted. She was already planning how much she would earn from selling this child as well. Without hesitation, she rushed to Mama Tenny's home, overflowing with excitement. "Mama Tenny, I'm expecting again," Amani exclaimed, nearly skipping with joy. "Mama." Tenny studied Amani with worry. "Amani, you must tread carefully. Trading infants isn't something to take lightly. It may lead to deep regret." But Amani wasn't interested in hearing that. She grinned. "This is my choice, Mama Tenny. I'll keep doing this. It's the easiest way for me to earn money." Mama Tenny sighed, realizing Amani wouldn't change her mind. So just like before, she guided Amani through her pregnancy. After 9 months, Amani gave birth to a baby boy. He was strong and full of life, his cries filling the air. But Amani felt no urge to hold him or even glance at him. She knew the buyers were already waiting outside. Without a moment's hesitation, she handed the infant to Mama Tenny, who delivered him to the buyers. This time, the payment was even larger. The buyers presented Amani with 2,000 gold coins, and even more dazzling jewelry than before. Amani was ecstatic. The wealth surpassed anything she had imagined. She had no thoughts about the child she had sold, only about the fortune she was amassing. As Amani examined her growing treasure of gold and gemstones, she felt invincible. She believed she had discovered the ultimate way to get rich, and nothing else mattered. She was determined to keep going, no matter what anyone said. Amani's plan succeeded beyond her expectations. She became incredibly wealthy in no time. Each time she conceived, she sold the child, collecting more gold and jewels. The more infants she traded, the richer she grew. Soon, Amani was enjoying a luxurious life in Biliku village. She wore the Ichisi's finest garments, adorned herself with stunning jewels, and acquired anything her heart desired. However, as Amani's riches expanded, so did Mama Teni's unease. One day, Mama Teni sat Amani down and said, "Amani, you have to stop selling your children. They are your legacy, your very own flesh and blood. You cannot continue down this path," Mama Teni pleaded. But Amani only chuckled, waving a dismissive hand. "Don't worry, Mama Teni. There are many more children within me. I'll keep making money this way, and nothing will stop me." Amani ignored all warnings. She was too consumed by her fortune and the lavish lifestyle she enjoyed. She frequently sent gifts and money back to her parents in the village, leaving them astonished by her wealth. They had no idea where all this fortune came from, but they were proud of her for thriving in Biliku village. By the time Amani finally chose to return home, she had already sold 10 of her children. Each sale had increased her riches and strengthened her power. She felt unstoppable, convinced nothing could ever go wrong. With bags filled with gold and dazzling jewels, Amani was eager to return and flaunt her success. She never once thought about the infants she had given away or the warnings she had dismissed. All that mattered was the luxury she had accumulated and the fortune she had built. When Amani eventually returned to her village, she appeared so transformed that even her own parents failed to recognize her at first. She wore the finest garments. Her skin glowed radiantly, and her expensive jewelry shimmered under the sun. The villagers gathered around in astonishment, marveling at how wealthy and stunning she had become. "Who is this elegant woman?" they murmured among themselves, struggling to believe that this was the same Amani who had once lived among them. It was Zola, Amani's childhood companion, who first recognized her. "Amani, is that truly you?" Zola cried, rushing forward and embracing her tightly. The villagers were left speechless. This was Amani, the girl who had left to master a trade in Biliku village. They welcomed her home with admiration and celebration. With her newfound wealth, Amani constructed a grand, magnificent house for herself. But she didn't stop there. She also renovated her parents' home, transforming it into a lavish and comfortable residence. Her parents swelled with pride, believing their daughter had achieved greatness. Now, Amani resided alone in her splendid mansion, surrounded by the wealth she had amassed from trading her own children. She relished the luxury and ease that her fortune provided, with no concerns weighing her down. The men in the village were mesmerized by her charm and affluence. Many eagerly proposed to her, hoping to claim a place in her prosperous life. Many assumed they could bask in her fortune and happiness. Yet, Amani always declined. "I have no need for a husband," she would say with a soft smile. Her riches fulfilled her, and she saw no reason for marriage. Amani believed she had everything: wealth, beauty, and admiration from all in the village. To her, life felt flawless. She never considered the price of her fortune or the uncertainties of the future. As the years passed, Amani's parents grew concerned. They saw her prosperity, but also noticed her solitude. Deep in their hearts, they believed a husband and children would bring true fulfillment. One day, her mother gently spoke. "Amani, you possess everything, yet you are alone. A husband and children bring true joy." Amani pondered over her mother's words. Though her riches had always satisfied her, she started to wonder, was something truly missing? Perhaps her parents were right. Soon after, Amani met a man named Omar. Omar was also wealthy, belonging to a highly respected family in the village. He was kind, handsome, and genuinely cared for Amani. They spent time together, and before long, Omar asked Amani to marry him. She accepted, believing marriage would finally complete her life. Their wedding was a grand celebration, with the entire village in attendance. The air filled with music, dancing, and feasting, and everyone marveled at how radiant the couple appeared together. As Amani stepped into this new journey, she felt joyful and optimistic. However, as the years unfolded, something unsettled her. 2 years had passed, yet she remained without a child. Omar's mother, longing for grandchildren, began pressuring her. "Amani, why haven't you given us a child yet? A wife's duty is to bear children," she often remarked. Despite her hopefulness, the pressure continued to mount. One day, Omar's mother reached her limit. She stormed into the house and declared, "Amani, you are barren. You cannot stay here any longer. My son needs a wife who can give him children." Amani's heart shattered. She adored Omar and wished to remain, but his mother's verdict was absolute. With sorrow-filled eyes, Amani gathered her belongings and departed from Omar's home, returning to her own. Feeling hollow and abandoned, the union she once believed would bring joy had instead ended in despair. Amani came to understand that no amount of wealth could fill the emptiness caused by her inability to bear a child. Sitting alone in her lavish home, surrounded by the fortune she had amassed, Amani was overwhelmed with sorrow. She had everything she once desired, yet now she felt more isolated than ever. After being cast out by Omar's mother, Amani sought to piece her life back together. She hoped to marry again, believing that perhaps another man could bring her the happiness she longed for. But no matter how much she tried, every man eventually left her upon learning she couldn't conceive. Word traveled swiftly through the village, and people began viewing Amani differently. They murmured behind her back, and the once eager suitors now kept their distance. One day, unexpectedly, Kofi, the first man who had denied her when she was pregnant, arrived at her doorstep. His expression was stern as he demanded, "Amani, where is my child? The one you carried before leaving the village?" Amani's heart pounded. She couldn't reveal the truth, so she lied. "I lost the baby, Kofi. I suffered a miscarriage." Kofi's eyes darkened with suspicion, but he turned away without another word. Just when Amani thought her troubles had ended, 2 more men came to her home on separate occasions, each asking the same haunting question. "Where is my child?" 2. Both, Amani repeated the same lie. "I lost the baby. I had a miscarriage." However, secrets do not remain hidden forever. A villager who had overheard one of her conversations knew the truth about what she had done in Biliku village. Without delay, they exposed Amani's deception. "She didn't lose your babies. She sold them. She's been selling her children for wealth." The men were stunned, their shock quickly turning into fury. The revelation spread like wildfire throughout the village, leaving people in disbelief. The Chiu-E, Men who had once pleaded for answers now returned, but this time they were not alone. A crowd of enraged villagers marched alongside them. "Give us back our children, Amani," they shouted, their voices fierce and unforgiving. "If you don't, we'll burn your house to the ground." Amani stood motionless, terror seizing her. The fortune she had built, the comfort she had enjoyed, all of it now seemed to slip through her fingers. Everything around her was collapsing. The villagers who had once admired her now stared with disgust and fury. Amani finally realized that her past had caught up with her, and the consequences were far worse than she had ever imagined. With a heavy heart and a mind consumed by fear, she knew she had no other choice. She had to find the children she had given away. She journeyed back to Biku village, desperate to undo the damage she had done. The moment she arrived, she rushed to Mama Tenny's hut, hoping the midwife could offer her some guidance. Mama Tenny saw the sorrow in Amani's eyes and sighed deeply. "Amani, I warned you not to walk this path. Now, you must live with the consequences of your choices." "Please, Mama Tenny, help me," Amani pleaded. "I must find the children and bring them back, or the villagers will destroy everything I have." Mama Tenny handed her a worn piece of paper with names and locations. "These are the people who took your children, but be warned, many may refuse to return them, and once you leave, do not come back here again." Amani nodded, heart pounding, and set off on her journey. She traveled across distant lands, knocking on doors, begging those who had taken her children to give them back. But her pleas were met with rejection. Some denied ever meeting her, while others refused outright, saying the children were now part of their families. Each refusal pierced her soul, and the burden of her past weighed heavily on her. After exhausting every effort, Amani returned to her village in disgrace. The villagers were waiting, their anger unshaken. They no longer cared about the wealth she had once displayed. To them, she was no longer a figure of success, but a symbol of greed and betrayal. Her parents were devastated. They couldn't believe what their daughter had done. They regretted not checking on her and failing to teach her the dangers of valuing wealth over life. The shame was too much for Amani's mother to bear, and in her sorrow, she passed away, leaving Amani feeling even more lost. As an act of repentance, Amani gave away her money and home, but the villagers rejected her offerings. They wanted nothing to do with anything tainted by her misdeeds. Determined to make amends, she sold everything and donated the money to the less fortunate. Then, carrying only a small bag, she left the village, taking with her nothing but regret. Amani settled near the village entrance, far from the luxurious life she had once known. She lived alone, spending her days in quiet reflection, haunted by the children she had lost and the life she had thrown away. Though she found some inner peace, loneliness never left her. She had realized too late the depth of her mistakes. Her story became a lesson for future generations. Parents warned their children, "Remember Amani, who traded her future for gold. She had everything but lost it all because she failed to see what truly mattered." Amani spent the rest of her days in solitude, her heart heavy with regret. As she sat by the village entrance, she hoped her story would help others avoid making the same tragic choices. She had finally learned that true wealth wasn't in gold or jewels. It was in the love and life she had once taken for granted. Hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, please like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more captivating tales. Thank you.